is continually evolving. Today, we witness a shift in tourism paradigm.
And the cultural knowledge that we have is very important.
This one is an Ifugao Bulul that has been lent to us.
To silk screen. So what we need to do is just get the first layer, on the top layer, the measurement.
We will now make sure that you will not be consultant dependent, and you will now be able to put together your own museums with least assistance from the others.
Basic tools that we need to set up the studio. A camera that you're comfortable with, together with it.
Also, generally, museum staff are advised not to pursue.
In doing that, I'd like to focus on the two important words in that formulation, which is to curate and to exhibit. To curate is to...
So why are museums important? Because museums and galleries give us an insight into the history of humankind.
So even John Dewey, who is a prominent leader in
Good morning, everybody. Mayad nga temprano from Palawan Western University. Greeting. Maabig abuklo kumuyo halban from Iba Sambales. And naimbag nga bigat kada kayo amin. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 7 and day 2 of our museum management training. We will continue from the previous session that we had yesterday with Professor Boots Herrera. For now, I would like to greet our participants from Region 4A. We would like to say hello to De La Salle University Medical and Health Sciences Institute, Batangas State University, Cavite State University Museum, Museo ng Gumaca, Museo Orlina, University of the Philippines Los Baños, Museum of Natural History, and from Region 4B, Marinduque State College, Mindoro Biodiversity Conservation Foundation Incorporated, Palawan State University, and Romblon State University Main Campus. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Day 2 na po tayo for this session. So ngayong umaga, we will talk about Museum's Policy Manual with Professor Boots Herrera this morning. Good morning, Boots.
Hi, good morning. Okay, so good morning to everyone, and again, thank you to Museo Kordilyera for hosting me here. I'm actually on site with them. So we're continuing with a session on museum policy, focusing specifically on collections management. So let me just share my screen now. Sorry, nawala. Okay, there. Okay, so for today, we'll focus on parang guidelines, no, on drafting a collections management policy. There will be what I will go through would be the main components, no, and I will also recommend or suggest some websites, for example, that you can refer to in the future for templates or for sample policies. No? So let me just proceed. No? So in the course of our task in managing museums, we have come across questions which at times are difficult to resolve, or at times we don't see any conflict of interest, but actually there are issues, there are implications, no, ethical implications on some situations. So, like for example, these are just examples. Some of them actually happened, no. So years ago. So let's say, for example, a museum would say they have quite a few objects that they've had for years, but they aren't sure who owns them, no. So and they would like to dispose of the object. So how do they proceed with that? Another case would be the situation wherein a museum would say every year the university ends up accepting donations that the museum doesn't really want. So how can you manage that kind of situation? This one actually happened many years ago. I remember hearing this from a museum staff when she said that their director attended a formal event and borrowed a jeweled comb, no, from the collection, so as her hair accessory. And then another scenario would be the university planning to establish a heritage museum, but funds are limited to form a substantial collection. So how can they go about and proceed with that project? I showed this slide already just to remind na this is still the context, no, where we're that defines the how we will proceed, no, in defining a collections management policy. So siguro more specifically, to understand what does collection stewardship mean, no, or entail. So basically, it means owning, exhibiting, and using collections, no, the collection that we acquire. Another aspect would be the museum legally, ethically, and effectively manages, documents, and cares, and uses the collections. So I'm just, parang hinihimay ko lang, no, yung aspect of collections management. The museum conducts collections-related research. So this is very important, especially for us, for museums who are within the context, who exist within the context of universities or schools. The museum strategically plans for the use and development of its collection. And then also important would be providing public access, no, to the collection, not only for those that are exhibited, but also those that are in storage. The museum allocates its space and uses facilities to meet the needs of the collection, audience, and staff. So it's always laging kasama yung audience natin and staff when we think about how we manage collections. The museum also appropriate measures in place to ensure the security and safety of the people, collection objects, and facilities that it owns. So this is actually basic housekeeping then, managing your facilities, yung day-to-day security needs, maintenance needs. And then the museum takes appropriate measures to protect itself against potential risk or loss. So that relates to yung risk management. No? So basically, what does collections management mean? So it's an integrated approach to developing, caring, and documenting collections. No? And again, we keep this in mind that we're safekeeping the collection for present and future generations. So yung again forward-looking na perspective na hindi lang para sa ngayon, so even this has implications on how frequent will you be acquiring in relation to the available space that you have, no? So these are things that you need to balance. And what is a collections management policy? So it's a written statement, no? Why the museum is in operation, and then the policy articulates the standards that we follow regarding the collection that are entrusted under our care. Now, in considering collections, no, in a museum, I think it's also important to understand what are we managing, no? Ano ba yung collection na pinag-uusapan natin? So, first of all, logically it would be the physical collections, the objects, no? And then, but beyond that, there are other aspects of the collection that may not be tangible, but are equally integral to enriching the collection. No? Kasi you can't, the collection will not be of value if we don't have the information, no? That relates to it. No? Kasi hindi natin magagamit properly sa isang exhibition. So we talk about the information, the knowledge related to a particular collection or a particular object. So this would mean, siguro in our case, using the case of the Ateneo Art Gallery, it would be, of course, the authorship, no? Tapos yung biographical and artistic development ng artist, and how does that work relate to the career, no, the practice of the artist, or in a bigger context, how does the work address the historical milieu that wherein first existed, and how it be made relevant to current times. And then yung narrative information, this would mean ano yung mga situations or maybe stories that informed the artist to produce that work. So these are actually things that are not necessarily intrinsic to the object, no? Kasi yung physical collection, ang nakikita lang natin yung intrinsic information, no? But there are other data that we need to gather and manage and record to enrich the significance, no, of your collection. And then, of course, administrative information, ano yung mga needs sa conservation. And then the rest are actually like digital surrogates, yung images. Kasi di ba we document our collection, and in documenting that, there is a system of management. And then how do you make that documentation available to the public, and to what extent, no? Kasi kami, like for example, yung use of images ng collection namin, we're quite careful with that, mainly because we do not own the copyright of the works in our collection. So kapag may nagtatanong sa amin ng they want to reproduce it as part of an article or as a book cover, we tell them that they need to get permission from the copyright holder, either the artist or the heirs. And after that, that's when we provide them with an image, no? So it's a standard procedure that we follow, and we also record or to document the publications wherein works from our collection are included. So yon, related din yung rights management dyan. So generally, kung educational yung gamit, ano naman, hindi problema yon. Pero kung hindi kami ang gagamit nun, inform pa rin namin yung heirs. But if it's for commercial use, even if kami yung gagawa nun, like for example, merchandising, we still need to get permission from the copyright holders. Okay? And then in looking or parang approaching collections management, it's also important to understand the institutional context, no, of ano yung to be able to facilitate acquisitions, the accessioning, day-to-day management. No? So this would be, again, the framework, the governance, for example, like how far will you involve the governing body when it comes to acquisitions, no? Like in our case, hindi namin pinapaabot sa presidente yung decisions for acquisitions, except for mainly to sign the deed of donation. But so parang there is already that understanding na more formality yung signature ng university president, kasi kami ang mas may alam, no, mas maalam dun sa ano, but we follow the procedure so that the donation is recorded as a donation to the university and not just the Ateneo Art Gallery. Tapos yung these other elements are actually related also to what would be the system, the setup within the bigger university organization or your respective organizations. Like for example, facilities management, meron kaming within the campus, meron kaming identified na contractor for pest management, pest control and management. So may schedule yun. That implicates also the maintenance of our collection, our facilities. Sa marketing and outreach, we do have our own person who does this, but we also coordinate, no, with the office, the university office that's in charge of marketing and outreach. Electronic records management, we get assistance also from a unit that handles this kind of matter. So again, siguro this is also important because it's actually an advantage that we are in a bigger organization, because we get further assistance, no, for our various needs. I always use this illustration just to parang relate how important an acquisition policy, which is part of the collections management plan, no, or policy, how important that is in making it. It makes our task, no, as curators, as museum directors, much easier kasi it defines already the parameters, no, by which we accept or reject, no, donations, no? So like for example, in this illustration, you have several possible donors. The curators parang considerations are apart from the policy, what the direction as stated in the policy would be, but also the resources that you have, no? So for example, yung amount of storage space that you have and amount of exhibition space, will you be able to manage, or will accepting a particular object as donation, how will that implicate or affect the existing collection, not only in terms of yung content but also physically, no? So may mga ganung issues. So hindi lang dahil gusto nyo at maganda yung object o yung work, no? So yung recently ang madalas kong ginagamit na example is a few years ago, there was a family who expressed their desire to donate a full figure Amorsolo portrait, no? It's the portrait of their grandmother, and it's a family whose children have always gone to Ateneo. So parang very significant, no, meaningful yung gesture of donating it to their alma mater, no? So generations of Ateneans. But considering the collection of Ateneo Art Gallery, I had to tell them that it does not fit the policy, the collection, the direction, no, of our of the museum's collection. Of course, they felt bad. They were very disappointed. But I also told them that that portrait would have a better place in the National Museum. And actually, now it's at the National Museum together with other portraits by Fernando Amorsolo. I don't think the family has donated it. It's on loan. No? So, yung ganong decision, kasi even if, kung tinanggap ko yun, parang ang hirap parang ang hirap i-justify, no? Not only in terms of yung genre, yung period that it represents or the genre that it represents in Philippine art, but also physically ang laki-laki niya. So it would have taken up a lot of space in the storage. Tapos kung i-display namin, parang it's quite overwhelming, no? So yun, that was a decision that we had to make. I had to make because I was thinking of how will it affect the current existing collection and our programs. So yung when you draft a collections management policy, as always, the mission statement of your organization will as I said, give ano to, parang an overall framework, no? Will guide you to drafting the how you would want to develop your collection, no? So o yung management policy. So under that, the general areas would be collections development. Development meaning yung expansion, no, ng collection nyo. So doon papasok yung acquisition, accessioning. Collections information would refer to the policies related to enriching the significance of the collection, which includes research and documentation. And then collections access refers to policies that provide public accessibility in the collection through exhibits, publications, loans, study collections, and even in virtual platforms. No? So this, during the pandemic, we actually made it, made a point to upload more images of our collection sa website. And in fact, a few months ago, we were we received some feedback and saying that we have been quite generous in sharing our collection. So sabi namin, kasi parang that's the only way, especially now, nung lockdown, no, that we can share, no, the collection, because people can't visit the museum. So that was a big, I think it was a very important decision on our part to do that. In terms of copyright, we did not have to worry, because what we would upload are low resolution images, and then may watermark pa nung Ateneo Art Gallery logo. So it's really just for reference. Now, if they need to see the actual work, or need a high-res image, no, for a publication, then they will have to go through the formal request procedure. And then collections care would, of course, refer to policies that are related to conservation, storage, even transport, yung pag-inventory, no? How often do you do an inventory of the collection? Ano yung policy sa insurance, and then risk and disaster management. Sorry. So again, I'm repeating this, no, from yesterday, just to remind us ano yung considerations that we need to remember, no? So yung legal nature of your institution would be important. If you're a religious or secular entity, a charitable organization, a government, or a private entity. So like, for example, interesting yung yung distinction between a government entity, cultural entity, collecting entity, and a private one. Kasi sa government, although I did not really experience this directly, because when I was working at CCP, we were not actively acquiring. In fact, I had to decline a few donations, mainly because CCP does not have the proper facility to store its current collection. So that was again a decision that I had to make in line with the current state of the collection. But in terms of, I know of a collecting entity, which is a government, na yung procedure nila of acquiring works for the collection was very tedious, because they had to go through processes that are required of government entities, no? So yung PhilJeps, I'm sure sila Ikin are aware of this, no? So if you're going to acquire, or if they were going to acquire a work from an artist, paano yun? No, so that those things had to be ironed out, no? So pero it was important that they had to address that particular issue when it comes to processing payment. So organizational framework, no? So it also guides you in deciding saan nagsisimula yung recommendation to acquire, and who makes the final decision. And then, as I said, the ICOM Code of Ethics, and other cultural heritage laws. If I may, I'd like to, siguro while we're on the subject of, I'd like to share screen the, ay, nawala. Ba't ganun? Okay. This is actually the new, this would be the latest version, no, of the ICOM Code of Ethics. So as I said, you can download this ICOM website, and dito lang sa table of contents makikita nyo na this actually can already guide you in in drafting a collections management policy, because each of the headings already relates to specific aspects of collections management. So this is actually a very useful reference, no? So I hope you have this in your file. Ay, sorry, nawala na ako. Okay, going back dun sa So what are the general pointers when drafting a collections management policy? So articulating procedures and areas of responsibility clearly, identifying the final decision maker, even the unit, the office that initiates the process. It's also important to be flexible, so allowing exceptions, no, in unusual circumstances. And then it's important to document all collection-related decisions, no? So even email exchanges, for example, receipts, notes related to a work, an artwork that we purchase, that was presented in an exhibition, no? So, and the maintenance of these records is very important, no? So, ngayon, ang SOP na is, while we have the hard copy, it's important to scan these documents and have a digital file also. So, sorry. So when you say collection object, so this is the item, no, that is going to be part or being considered as to be part of the collection, no. In our case, we would call it also an artwork, no. So more generic yung collection object. Accessioning is as noted there, yung formal process, no, of accepting a donation. So in our case, yung acquisition process begins with yung considerations, no, yung parang ipopropose or pinag-iisipan, ganyan. We ask, we have informal discussions with the artist or the gallery, and then pag na-finalize na yung actual transfer of ownership, no, or in the case of donations, acceptance of the donation, yung pag-formalize through a donation, deed of donation, that is the start of the accessioning process. Kasi doon sa documents that are generated, no, in formalizing the process, we are able to generate the information that would begin the record for that collection object. So kumbaga parang ano siya, no, again, I would always describe compare it with students entering a university. Pagpasok, may student number, kasi bibigyan natin ng catalog number. Tapos, may record na siya. No? So, everything that happens that relates to that object, ipapasok dun sa record na yon. Now, deaccessioning is the formal process of removing an object permanently. But again, if you go back to if you read the ICOM Code of Ethics, very strict yung rules, no, or guidelines sa deaccessioning. So you don't parang this is the last resort if you need to remove an object from your collection. And there are acceptable reasons, no, which I think later we'll look into some of them. Tapos yung loans, what are your policies regarding loans? No? So what is a loan? It's basically a temporary assignment of a collection object from the museum or for your museum accepting that temporary assignment. No? So kung kaya nilagay ko dyan outgoing kung tayo ang nagpapahiram. Pero may cases din na tayo ang hihiram, no? Which we often do when we have special exhibitions. Now, there are cases wherein objects are placed in the custody of a museum. So, this is not a permanent, these are not accession objects, but rather parang on temporary loan. No? So, we would, in the case of Ateneo Art Gallery, we would use the phrase long-term loan. No? So, ang long-term would be siguro mga 5 years. So, like a recent case, for example, just came up. No, we had an exhibition by an artist named Pete Jimenez, and after when we were about to end the exhibit, he messaged me and told me that he would like to donate the work to Ateneo Art Gallery, but on the condition that it be shown outdoors, kasi it's ideal for an outdoor setting. I'll show you a picture later. So natuwa ako kasi maganda yung trabaho. Pero sabi ko sa kanya, wag muna nating gawing donation. Can we first document it as a long-term loan, because I need to get permission from the university to use the space outdoors permanently for this. So we agreed on that, no? So in a way, it's my way of managing expectations and also managing the parang I wanted to show at the university administration na this is a good space for the work, and true enough, people have seen them, especially officials of the university, like the idea of having it in that space. No? So I hope it will be easy enough for me to parang convince or get permission for the permanent use of that site. So yun yung parang that's considered still as just placed in our custody or long-term loan. Pero meron ding other cases wherein it's parang endorsed or entrusted to a museum for specific reasons, no, attribution, identification, no, and then in some cases examination for possible gift or purchase. If you have to make some technical examination of the work before you finally decide to accept it. So these are basically the components of the policy. So statement of purpose, description of the collection. So it's basically again, it relates to the mission statement and the goals of the collection, which would be parallel to the goals of some of the goals and objectives of the museum. Another component would be what would be your policy regarding records, cataloging, documentation, and registration. So, ano yung parang unang phase, no? Unang step of creating a record. And if it's, let's say, for example, an object that is temporarily assigned to you, how will you distinguish the acceptance of that object from objects that you are accessioning or acquiring? Tapos ano yung procedure of acquisition of objects, the accessioning or disposal? What are your policies regarding loans and objects left in the custody of your care? Access to collection objects, preservation, which includes conservation, restoration, risk management is also another item. And then, what are your policies regarding, as I said, inventories, appraisals, and insurance procedures? In the ICOM Code of Ethics, particularly with regards to appraisals, it clearly indicates or states that if an appraisal will be in line with a museum's or relate to a museum's collection, no, it should be done by an independent body. And kami generally, we would say we cannot provide appraisals, yung of formal appraisals, no, sa objects, art objects that are not officially or formally accessioned as part of the collection. Okay. So the rest are actually parang these are just siguro I'll just go through some highlights. So ito, how do objects enter the museum collection? So they're not necessarily they will not necessarily enter the premises of the museum for accessioning agad, no? Kasi pwedeng i-examine nyo muna, pag-uusapan muna. Pero if it is going to be acquired eventually, ano yung possible situations, no? So one would be if the museum would purchase it, if it's a gift or a donation, if it's a bequest. The distinction between gift and bequest is that a bequest is stipulated in a will. So the transfer of ownership will not happen until after the person who wills it has passed on, no? So yun yung distinction ng bequest. Tapos yun nga, long-term loan is another. Exchange is a possible way of accessioning or acquiring an object. Usually this is a conversation or an exchange between two museums, no? So related yan dun sa possible scenario of disposal. So one acceptable way of deaccessioning an object from your collection is if you find another museum wherein it will be more relevant, no? So that's the context of exchange. And of course, field research. So I know Museo Kordilyera, no, acquires or has a number of objects that were acquired through field research, no, which is very important kasi it already guarantees na merong may proper documentation, no, and information research that's integral to the acquisition of the object. Meron ding cases na merong and this is up to the museum, no, to accept restricted gifts or donors restrictions, no. So in our case, we are quite careful with that. Ano ba yung restricted gift or donor restrictions? Meron kasi we've encountered a few donors who said that I want to donate my collection, my art collection, pero lahat dapat tatanggapin, kukunin, i-donate niya lahat sa sa Ateneo Art Gallery or Ateneo de Manila University through AAG, at gusto niya naka-exhibit lagi or at least a percentage of it. Yung ganong conditions hindi namin mabibigay, no? So we really, these are decisions that may not put the university in a good light, but again, we're thinking of the parang how those decisions, no, or those conditions na from the donor will affect our programming. So marami actually medyo galit na yata sa akin ng mga donors. Pero I think in the end, the university understands, at least I have to explain, especially to the president, no, why we had to make those decisions. And eventually, they do understand. No? Hindi naman, it's not as if, kasi ayaw ko, hindi ganun, hindi pwedeng ganun. No? And then, as I said, who makes the final decision regarding acquisition? So it's basically my position, pero yun na nga, yung formal acceptance is with the lies with the office of the president. Okay, this is an example of I got this. This is an excerpt from a website of the Royal Museum of Greenwich in UK. This is the website. You might want to check it out kasi may mga sample museum policies doon. But this is I thought this would be good to show you, just to parang as a guide, no? Ano yung criteria for acquisition or assessing if an object is would be a good addition to the collection. So one is, and the points are actually general enough that could apply to different types of museums. So one, the value of the collection, its value to the collection, no? The value of the object that you're considering to acquire, to the collection, to the museum's research, learning and display programs, and audience development strategy. No? So ito parang napaka no, yung makikita nyo na yung relevance na hindi lang hindi intrinsic dun sa object na i-acquire, kundi ano yung co-contribute niya doon sa program ng museum. In some cases, although not necessarily required yung national and international importance by themselves or by association. So this, of course, this is not necessarily applicable to everyone. Rarity at times is a factor, but in some cases, hindi naman kailangan, ano? Like in our case, what is meant by rarity, kasi may mga artists who work on a series, no, that they would produce over a period of time, no? So it's not necessarily rare, but if we find that series is a significant one, then it would be a good addition to the collection. And then the quality, in terms of technical and design development, no? Yung artistic and aesthetic significance. So ito, looking at the accessioning or disposal, ano yung criteria? Ano ba yung possible criteria? Isa dun sa often, which actually does not happen often, no? Pero if an object is found to be parang while in storage, nasira siya. And this can happen. So, irretrievable na, no? Hindi mo na ma-restore. So, that will actually require a process of deaccessioning. So, parang you're formally removing it from the collection records. Another would be if there are duplicates, no? So, pero yung when you say duplicates, you have to be clear ano ba yung ibig sabihin nun. Like, for example, if you're dealing with a collection of ceramic objects na kung limited yung space ninyo, storage space, and you have so many of a similar type, you can actually, if you but if you can afford to keep them, of course, no, don't dispose of them. Pero ito lang yung some reasons why how you can justify the accessioning. Tapos yung sinabi ko nga kahapon na what happens if you're dealing with an object that was donated. So ano ang conditions nyo dun sa donation papers if in the event you need to dispose or deaccession a work that has been donated. So sa amin, we would have parang ang first step namin once it's although this has not happened, but if it happens, the first thing we do is we inform the donor, no? But hopefully we don't need to kasi parang hindi kasi maganda rin na practice na dinodonate, i-accept nyo, tapos a few years i-dispose, no? So for a museum, that's not good practice. So what are the acceptable methods of disposal? So ito na, no, yung kung nasira na, yun, that's understandable. A more constructive way of disposing an object from your collection is actually to exchange it with other museums, no? So or donate it to another museum. Kasi when you say exchange, parang may ipapalit na, may kapalit, no? Pwedeng i-entrust or i-donate nyo sa isang museum na mas magagamit nila, no? Tapos sale, you can also do that, pero merong sa ICOM Code of Ethics may guide din na how do you use the funds that you get from the sale of these objects, no? Ang acceptable practice is it goes back to the care of the collection. You don't use it for administrative purposes because that's parang ibang na yon, parang kasi baka mamaya isipin nila kaya kayo nagdi-dispose kasi para makapagbayad ng salaries ng yung budget for programs, and that's not the way museums should operate. I mean, they have to have a very clear source of funding for programming, and then hindi naapektuhan yung programs related to the collection or how you would care for your collections. Ang kasi dyan, if let's say for example, a prospective donor hears word na ganun yung practice ninyo, they would think twice, no? If they will donate or not, no, to your museum. Kasi kung alam nila na that's a common practice that you do, no? So that's why the accessioning is really a very, it's already an extreme case. Sa loans naman, we always say na it's very important to lend your collection to other museums. Of course, museums, no? Hindi siya yung tipong ilalagay sa isang commercial space, no? We always make sure that it's in a loan requests are from reputable organizations. Usually museum yun, no? So it's also a good that's part of networking, no? Dun sa among the your peers in the museum community. But it's important to again define ano yung terms of reference, no? So a loan agreement contract is very important. in our case, we have a loan agreement for objects that we borrow, and then we also have a loan agreement for objects that are borrowed from us. Now, it depends on the other party if they prefer to use our document, no? Pero more often, like for example, recently we a regular borrower from Ateneo Art Gallery before COVID is actually the National Gallery of Singapore. So they've been borrowing several works from us. So we use their loan agreement, their contract. No? Pero it's more or less pare-pareho naman yung ano yan. Merong basic content, no? Access to collections, kung nasa storage at merong gustong tumingin, no, ng particular work na hindi naka-exhibit, ano ang procedure nyo? Recently, we had a request like this, and I just had to tell the researcher na, okay, if there are any specific works that you would like to see that are in storage, let us know, check the website and you have the collection there, and then we will bring it out for you from the storage. No? So we don't, kasi ang request niyo was to access the storage. So we don't also do it that way. No? Merong other museums na open storage tulad dito sa Museo Kordilyera. Pero kasi kami, we don't allow just anybody to enter the storage of our collection. So, well, ito, I think that would have been discussed by sa conservation. Inventories, as I said, so it's very important to be clear, to have a clear schedule, no, of when inventory should be made. No? Risk management has to do with drafting, specific to the collection. No? So this is also very important. Ano yung policy regarding protecting objects while on exhibit and while in storage. No? So kasama din dyan yung insurance, which is also relevant to loans. When we borrow, and when we lend our collection, we always require an all risk insurance coverage, wall to wall or nail to nail. It's a phrase that means from the lender's premises to the borrower and then back to the lender. No? So yung isa pa lang concern regarding loans, yung isang question na is a courier required? There are museums that actually are parang they always tell the borrowing entity, we will have our courier accompany the work. No? So kung ganun yung terms, you actually have to agree to that if you really want and need the work from their collection to be part of the exhibit, the project. Merong cases naman, kami hindi ganun ka strict. Only when the borrower tells us we can assign a courier. And so we do that. No? Otherwise, ngayon kasi merong may mga data logger na pwedeng isama sa loob ng dun sa package, dun sa crate, for example, na mamomonitor mo even while you're off-site. No? So, kasi by the way, ang gamit ng courier is to make sure that the work is properly handled while while it's on transit. Hindi siya yung tipong sasakay siya sa first class or yung first class flight, tapos mauuna or susunod siya dun sa work. Ideally, yung courier kasabay ng trabaho. And then this is already the last slide. So again, ethics, as I said, regarding appraisals and staff responsibilities. So so yung pag-authenticate, no, this is medyo malaking, parang sensitive na usapin to, especially yung kasi authentication implies that the person or the body that is given that task, no, the responsibility to authenticate a work, for example, an artwork. We're assuming that they are knowledgeable of the artist's body of works, no? Pero kung ang authentication panel mo authenticates anybody, any Filipino artist, medyo mag-iisip ka na, no, na how reliable are their decisions, are their statements, no? Okay. And then yun, museum staff are also advised not to pursue any collecting activities, no? Collecting in the sense na you're compiling a significant collection for yourself, no? Especially of objects that are similar to the museum's collection. Kasi magkakaroon kayo ng conflict of interest dyan. Kasi sa acquisition pa lang, pwedeng in your mind, iisipin mo, ay maganda ito. I-offer ko pa doon sa museum or ako muna ang bibili. May ganun yung conflicts of interest. No? So, kaya as much as possible, hindi actively collecting. So, ang hindi qualification na porke collector ka, pwede kang maging museum director or curator. It's not it's not a sure criteria, no, for to manage a museum. In fact, yun nga sasabihin ko pa, mas may conflict of interest. So yung finally, policies as all policies must be reviewed and reassessed. And it would be good also to indicate a time frame for monitoring, evaluation, and revision. And with that, I end the presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Brooks, for that very informative talk, collections management. All right, so we have some questions already. So we would like to request our participants to now type in their questions at the chat box. No? But we already collected some of the questions. All right, so first question, Brooks, how do we approach a museum without a museum's policy yet? Then may follow-up siya. Should a museum policy be in place first without a physical museum? Yes.
Yes. I think posible din na may collection na nagsimula na yung development ng museum. No? I think sa Museo Kordilyera, it happened that way. No? And then, yung policy can actually follow, particularly with the end in view of ensuring that the direction of developing or enhancing, enriching the collection with that aim. No? Actually, ano nga yun magandang, meron ka ng pinagbabasehan. So, kung baga, if you have a core collection, and in a way, in Ateneo Art Gallery, ganun ang nangyari. When Zobel donated his personal collection, I'm sure wala pang policies, no? Noon, iniisip sila Eric Torres, who was the first curator. But the core collection actually defined the basis for expanding the collection, for developing the collection. Kasi yun na yung pinaka-framework. And even until now, we always go back to that. Like for example, yung print collection namin, isa yon sa mga ngayon parang aggressively lumalaki, no? Kasi isa yan dun sa it's a portion of the core collection that Sobel entrusted to Ateneo. And we felt na magandang i-explore or i-expand. Kaya this actually gave us also the rationale for accepting a donation of prints that includes, that has a similar scope as what Zobel donated to us in the 60s. So, to answer the question, yes, you can have a collection, existing collection, and then susunod yung policy. Kasi yun nga, yung existing collection mo, ang magiging basis mo.
The same case with the Museo Kordilyera. We started with the faculty collections first. And until we acquired some collections, that's where we started drafting our museum collections policy.
Oo.
The others are related question here, Boots. Is the collections management policy similar with a museum policy manual?
Sorry, itong second question. Yeah, yes.
Policy.
Actually, yung museum policy manual, isa sa mga policies dyan, yung collections management. No? Kasama din dyan yung policy regarding research na related sa collection din. No? So you can consider that as a subsection doon sa bigger museum policy manual.
Okay, so there's a question here regarding decision-making power. So ano yung limit ng decision-making power ng curator sa acquisition of artifacts? What if there are ethical issues on acquiring an object? What are the safeguards to be included in the museum's policy?
Okay, siguro dun sa I think yung dun sa decision-making power, it depends on the nature of the organization. No? Kasi nga kami, maliit lang kami na entity, 7 lang kami. Tapos, yung among us, 7, 2 lang siguro kami na mas or maybe 3, no? Na may grasp dun sa what's happening in the contemporary art world. No? So, in the case of, but for larger institutions, yung curator actually would initiate the acquisition. Parang gagawa siya ng initiate, if you are to formally initiate the acquisition process, you would begin with a recommendation that this object be acquired, no, be added to the collection. Ano yung justification? And then, kung may higher entity, yun yung no? Yun yung magde-decide. So, you can define that in the procedure. What if there are ethical issues sa pag-acquire ng isang object? So, yun yung isang babantayan natin. Ano yung, I don't know what you mean by ethical issues. No? So, one would be, part of the acquisition process is to ensure that there is legal ownership. The party that from which you are acquiring it, no, has legal ownership of the object. Kasi otherwise, kahit na sabihin natin na may deed of donation signed by this party, kung hindi siya ang legal owner pala. Lalo na kapag family ang pinag-uusapan, yan yung mga . So, another ethical issue is, what if it's a stolen object? So you have to make sure na may title yung legal owner yung kausap nyo. Another ethical issue would be for anthropological museums, yung human remains, hindi na dapat tayo nag-acquire niyan. So, isasama nyo yan dun sa acquisition policy na ito dapat ang mga kailangang siguraduhin, no, at babantayan. Tapos, what are safeguards we can include in the, yun nga, it's basically to identify ano yung possible scenarios na may conflicts of interest, may ethical issues. And again, the code of ethics already gives those ano yung general ano, and which you can apply to your respective respective cases, no, museums. Kelly, mamaya papakita ko yung ano, yung I have it nasa nasa website namin. Or do you want to see it now? Teka, let me. She's asking if they can see the
Outer sculpture.
let me go lang dun sa ano ha. Nasan ba yung aming website? Teka. Sorry. Ay, nawala. Teka muna. Stop share. Hanapin ko. Sige, maybe we can go to the other questions
Yes.
while ano.
Yeah, this is a related question regarding the previous question a while ago. Yung question niya from YouTube, does the collection management policy have a legal hold over the relationship between stakeholders and the museum as an entity? Does it
Okay, I'm not sure what do you mean by what do you mean by legal hold?
meron siyang follow up? Does it serve as a legal protection in case, for example, the museums intentionally or unintentionally receive stolen, looted, or appropriated art or archaeological material taken without consent from IP ancestral lands?
Actually, it protects you from doing that. No, kasi ang ano, you're putting it on in black and white na you will, before you formally receive any donation or acquire through purchase any object, sisiguraduhin mo na hindi siya stolen, hindi siya unethically removed from its origin, no? So I guess to answer yung let's treat the policy as really your protection, no? Pero yung in terms of legally binding, no, I don't think it can. But it's more of the transfer of ownership through a deed of donation that will be a legal agreement between donor and the museum.
Okay, so we have more questions, Boots.
Oo nga.
One, for museums and universities that are just starting up, about how long is the period of drafting a collections management policy? And what are the common step-by-step procedures that we do?
Yeah, ang step by step siguro yung for how long I cannot really give you a time frame, but siguro basically yung step by step like what we have done. Kung wala pa kayong if you've been operating for a while and you've had past donations, no, siguro retrace nyo yung procedure na ginawa nyo na kahit hindi pa official, hindi formalized yung proseso, dinaanan nyo na. And then, isulat nyo yon. And then assess if it still works. And how can you improve on it. So, that by itself is already part of the process of drafting the policy. And then, pag i-present nyo sa museum ninyo, if there's another entity like the governing body, no, you can present to them, this would be a draft of the collections management policy that we can follow in the future. So they will review that, and then like in our case kasi marami ng mga acquisitions before, tapos meron na kaming mga templates na documents, no. So kasama yan dun sa In fact, yung deed of donation that we're using now, I actually reviewed the previews before I came in. Meron na rin sila. Pero I added more, a few more elements. No? Like for example, yung may annex kaming dinagdag regarding allowing us to, if you are the copyright holder, yung donor, no, will you allow us to use the object, the collection, the artwork for educational purposes? So kung that already gives us yung freedom, no, to use it for exhibitions, for publications na educational.
Sa case ng Museo Kordilyera, we're still revising, no, our museum's policy. So it takes a while, like what we have to list down kung ano yung procedures na nagganap doon sa pag-acquire, sa acceptance ng donation, whatever. No? So you have to write it down. Until now, we're still revising our policy because of the COVID. No, you have to adapt to the changes that are important.
Don't think na hindi kayo makakagalaw kung walang policy. No? I think yung policy, treat it as something that can be used by future managers also. So that's your contribution when you leave the institution, when you retire. Parang natulungan nyo sila na magkaroon ng structure.
Okay. Next question. Is it possible to develop a collections management policy even without a museum policy manual yet?
Yeah. Yes. Again, don't be parang minsan naano tayo na you have to do things step by step. So, especially for museums that are just starting, siguro right now, ang importante is really focusing on how you can develop the collections. Kahit yung other aspects ng museum policy, hindi pa nasusulat o nagagawa. Kasi yung collection ang nagbibigay nung yung pinaka reason for being natin, di ba? So, importante na yun ang pagtuunan ng pansin.
Okay, so may tanong si Kelly, who writes the pinabura ko yata.
I think yung who writes the collections management policy, no?
Is it the people in charge of the museum or collective, or what is the process? Parang ganun.
Ang ginagawa namin parang more effective, merong isang tao na magda-draft, no? Usually, well, in our case, it would be me. Tapos, pag-uusapan namin. Kasi kung, or merong cases na I would ask, meron kasi kaming museum registrar, which is a position that was created fairly recently. So, siya yung papagawa ko ng can you draft ano yung procedures natin sa loans. Tapos, compile all the documents that are parang related to that will be part of the collections policy manual. No? So, kasi ang hirap kung marami kayo magsisimula. Maganda yung kumbaga may working paper na, di ba?
Yeah. In the case of Museo Kordilyera, it started with the director and then the curator, and then of course we have the PDA, yung Program Development Associate. And then it was presented to the board, and then the board now reviews it and provides comments for the details, mga nitty-gritty things that you can find in the museum. Okay, question from Betsy Gazo. Has there ever been an instance when a collections issue ended up in court between the museum and the donor? Oh, no.
Well, not with us, but I'm sure there have been cases. Alam nyo, museums as big as the Getty Museum, for example, and other large museums would have issues related to donations. Recently, ang common na encounter ko sa news are works that were that belonged to Jewish families noong World War II. and that were confiscated. So they were taken away from the family, and then only to be parang confirmed na it it ended up in a museum collection. So tapos the family, a member of the family, let's say for example, she was still a young girl and she survived the war, and then she saw a work that's in a museum. They actually merong legal they went through a legal process to repatriate, no, the and museums now are more open, no. Ang news nga yung decision na yung museum is returning this work to this family because it also, kasi parang ano yan it also gives them parang yung it proves that they respect yung ownership ng original ng family na yon, and that it was not, they did not release it or sell it voluntarily, no. It was in a very dire condition that the object was taken from them, no? So repatriation issues, of course the biggest the most major example would be the repatriation of the Parthenon marbles from the British Museum. Meron niyang movie na that was produced documenting the what the lawyers did, that was commissioned by the Greek government. Ito yung first talagang malaking legal hearing na natalo ang Greece, no. So I think they're revisiting that. So meron may mga issues. Pero ngayon dito sa atin parang wala akong, siguro puro mga out of court settlement kung meron man.
Okay, thank you, Boots. So there's a question again. We are currently making our museum policy manual. Would it be okay to include the museum board in the manual in some of the policies, especially decision making, even if we still do not have a museum board?
I think, I'm not sure how you want, what do you mean by include them? In what capacity? No? Kasi, and it will also depend on what are the qualifications of your board. No? Like, for example, if it's a board like CCPs na merong mga cultural practitioners, pero meron ding presidential appointees na hindi necessarily maalam sa art and culture, no? So siguro I think you have to be how do you call it, specific first with what do you mean by involvement. At the very least, the museum, the governing body, the museum board, should have the right to review the policies. Siguro, usually sila yung pinakahuli, no? And then they will approve it. Tapos, pero maganda yung merong exchange din. I'm sure magkakaroon ng mga parang may questions na, which is also good kasi they may be seeing aspects na hindi natin nakikita from inside.
Okay, thank you, Boots. Question, is it possible to exhibit an artifacts without passing through the acquisition criteria?
If you are not, well, that's a curatorial, I think it's a curatorial decision. So, siguro, ang pagkaintindi ko dun sa question, kung may exhibition kayo, pwede ba kayong magpasok ng works na hindi part ng collection nyo? Pwede. Basta, kailangan siya, merong specific, it strengthens the exhibition. It's not just for the sake of exhibiting, no, or displaying. Pagka kasi, like in our case, meron kaming mga exhibits na hindi namin collection, we borrow. And yung loans, actually, hindi lang between museums. No, I have to qualify that. It's also, we borrow a lot from private collectors, which is also good for them and for us. No? So, ang importante lang, i-acknowledge nyo kung sino ang may-ari. So, collection of, lagi yan, that's part of the, sa loan agreement namin. Pag hinihiram namin, ito, ganito namin i-acknowledge. May ibang collectors na ayaw nila pa-mention, so we just say private collection.
At tingin ko, Boots, yung question niya parang
Without
through the acquisition. I mean, the acquisition.
Hindi, pero yun nga eh. Unless you are
parang
so
naglagay
parang
artifact without passing through the process.
Exhibit an artifact without passing through the acquisition criteria. Pero yun pa rin ang sagot ko eh. Kung what is your reason for including it in an exhibit? I think it before considering it as an acquisition, does it strengthen the exhibition? So you treat it as a loan, no? Kung ayaw nyo pang i-acquire. And that case may actually be a justification for you to eventually acquire it, which is actually a good test eh. And in some cases, may ganung nangyayari na hiniram nyo yung object, tapos posible yung may-ari din naisip niya na parang mas bagay nga ibigay ko na to sa museum. So that's actually a good parang way of convincing the donor or putting that idea to the donor in the donor's mind to consider.
Okay. Question on security. Is it advisable to employ security personnel to secure collection of the museum?
Of course, yes. Pero when you say security, merong dapat informed din sila yung basic, no? Things, basic guidelines, no? Like for example, ano ang babantayan nila? In fact, kami, di ko alam dito sa inyo, Ikin, kahit sa CCP, kasi di ba tayo, agency, ang security, no? Pero kami, and nagpapalit yan, di ba? Whenever parang the mother organization decides to get another security agency, what we do is we actually ask them, can you absorb the security guards who have been working with us? Kasi hindi kami nagpaparotate dahil natuturuan na namin sila ng basic art handling, minsan nakakatulong din sa pagsabit, pag-install, no? So importante 'yon sa amin eh. Tapos sinasabi rin namin na ayaw namin yung naka-uniforme. Gusto namin plain yung kasi 'di ba pag military, yung 'di ba? Oo. Ayaw namin ng ganun. So yung relations namin sa security personnel and even maintenance personnel is very important. We also nurture that kasi they supplement they give assistance beyond what they would normally But yes, security personnel to secure the collection, just make sure they're trained well. Also trained how to deal with visitors. Kasi recently there was a case, nagka-art fair, no, sa Makati, tapos yung anak ng isang kaibigan namin, a young boy went there, tapos nagtampisaw daw dun sa fountain where the art fair was located. Tapos yung security, parang pinagalitan, pinituhan, no, yung whistle, tapos pinagalitan yung bata, and 4 years old lang yata yung bata, no? So, parang na-traumatize. So, yung ganon, that's visitor relations eh. No? So you also have to tell the guards ano yung how they should address situations like that.
Yeah. Same way with the Museo Kordilyera, we always request to have one, dedicated
Oo.
security personnel, the utility personnel, no? Talagang sila yung part of the family, part of the team of Museo Kordilyera. Kasi alam na nila yung mga ins and outs, handling also, no?
'Di ba?
Cleaning also.
Yeah, yung paglinis din. Tsaka alam nila yung pag gaano kalapit ba dapat yung viewer dun sa exhibit. 'Di ba? So, alam na nila paano i-handle yun. Okay, yung ano pa? Next. Ano to? Instance where when you have to go against museum policy, what should be done in these instances? Ako kasi, ako hindi pa ako, parang wala pa akong experience na in this case. Pero siguro, what I can share is, because of the lack of a policy, it can put a museum in a bad light. No? Like, for example, yung issue, I'm very careful with yung issue of selling artworks in relation to a museum. So that's something that I really make sure hindi kami ma-implicate, no? So we're very careful with that. Kasi otherwise, they would think na we sell art. Parang tingin nga nila sa amin, commercial gallery, no? So, pero yun yung isa sa, and that also trickles down into yung decisions namin sa pag-develop ng museum shop. Kasi kami, may nagtanong before, can we sell prints? Sabi ko, parang hindi yung fine print, no? Sabi ko, siguro hindi kasi unless they're printed on t-shirts or other parang part of merchandising. Kasi we do have a contemporary collection of a collection of contemporary prints. So baka isipin nila, no, na binebenta namin yung collection namin.
Yeah. Okay. How often do you revisit a museum management policy? Yun yung tanong.
Siguro siguro 5 years, depending on the nature of your operations. Ideally, if there's a new person coming in as head, that would be a good time also to review the museum policies. Kasi it's a new perspective. Diba? So
there's a comment here from Eric that just sharing, contracting a security agency is also a form of insurance. The contract can explicitly include liability for safety and security negligence, including damages. The value can be negotiated with the agency.
Oo, yun. Although we haven't really tried, kasi parang, especially for a government agency like CCP, for example, parang nakapaloob sa bigger contract between the mother institution and Pero yes, it is a form of insurance. Hindi ko lang, I don't know, have you tried this, Ikin? Yung parang discussing with the agency, parang specific, yung special needs ng museum?
Yes, we do that. We channel our concerns to the Vice Chancellor of Administration. Kasi sa kanya yung under yung security personnel. So we recommendations regarding the needs, specific needs of the museum. It's this kind of treatment should be ito yung mga qualifications, etc.
Oo.
etc.
Pero ito kasi, yung comment, parang ipapasok sa kontrata.
Baka hindi.
Yun, baka hindi, kaya importante rin na you have good relations with the agency. 'Di ba? Kasi naintindihan nila. Kami, ganun, actually, sila ang nahihiya sa amin kasi pinapagalitan ko sila. Dahil yung pag-treat sa bisita sa gate pa lang, yun. So, parang sinasabihan ko sila, this is how you should, wag niyong tatanungin kung anong gagawin nila sa museum. 'Di ba? Ano bang gagawin sa museum? Gano'n. So, anyway.
Anyway, Eric also said, also upon assumption of the contract, the agency conducts an initial security survey and security plan. Clients may request a copy of this and can be adapted for museum policies. No? So,
Oo, yeah. Pero yun lang kasi hindi ko alam, meron pa siyang dagdag liability value. Pero this, actually, if you're ano tawag doon, hiring the agency specifically for just a museum, you
yeah,
can, but if you are part of a bigger organization, yun, medyo mahirap i-negotiate yun. Tsaka baka yung mother organization won't allow it. Hindi ko lang alam how, kasi parang meron na silang standard contract. No? Okay, is it ethical to deaccession an object and designate it for another use in the university organization managing the museum for art? Recommend this. Again, this can have implications on how future donors, prospective donors, will see your institution. So, ibig sabihin, dun pa lang sa phase or the process of acquiring, parang hindi na napag-isipan. No? Parang kailangan doon, kaya importante yung yung proseso ng pag-acquire. Like sa amin, yung isa sa mga criteria na ginagamit namin is, has this artist won or has he or she been shortlisted sa Ateneo Art Awards? That also gives us parang a framework, a basis for acquiring works for the collection kasi it informs another part of our program. No? So, kung i-de-accession nyo from the museum pero nandun pa rin sa university, parang hindi siya magandang I personally would not recommend it.
okay.
Okay, is it advisable to publicize a museum's collections management policy? Yes, but yun na nga, that's why what I give you are general guidelines kasi very specific yung Pero yung policy regarding yung criteria for accepting donations. Kasi yun naman but we don't publish it in our website, but we also share it whenever we communicate with donors.
Yes. So maybe in level 2, we can actually have samples of some of the museum policies of other museums. We can also share that.
Yeah. Yung merong, and you can actually check you can check online. There are different examples accessible. I think last year I did send a sample. There was a PDF file that I shared. Maybe you can check that. It's actually a detailed parang compilation of drafting a collections management policy. I'll check my files again and then send it to you.
In Museo Kordilyera, what we do is to survey university museum policies. And then look at what is applicable to your museum. Hindi naman kailangan. Just look at the provisions, what are applicable to museums. Okay, so naubos na yung question natin.
Teka, yung yung request ni Kelly.
Yes.
Kelly. I'm showing you the website. So this is actually the one of the ito, parang homepage namin. Pero sa exhibitions, ito yung ongoing. Kasama dito yung kay Leroy New. This is an outdoor program which is separate from the regular AAG Museum program. But we also manage. Ito yung ano. Ito yung kay Pete Jimenez, yung Islands for Sale. Iisa lang pala yung nakalagay. Pero merong video na kasama. But the video actually was produced while the exhibit was still inside. But this is how it looks. So itong area where it sits right now, where it's installed, was originally intended as a water feature, fountain dapat, na hindi na nagawa-gawa since, well, we were expecting it should have, kung matutuloy yan, it would have been done before the lockdown. Pero hindi nga na hindi pa nagagawa. And then, it was actually a guest, another artist who visited and saw Pete's exhibit inside, no, sa 3rd floor. And then, sabi niya, bagay yung work ni Pete. Tinuro niya tong space na to. Kaya nung nag-express si Pete ng interest of donating it, ito agad talaga yung naisip ko na space. So, yung sa level ng admin, yung office that manages the building, I had to get permission from her, yung executive director ng Arete. And ang sabi nga niya, okay din sa kanila kasi parang hindi na matutuloy yung plano for the water feature. So, I hope that will mean we can use this permanently.
Okay. Thank you, Boots, and thank you, Kelly, for that. Okay, so
merong comment si Eric, no, sa security pa rin ang ano niya, no? So, yes, I'm sure kasi Eric, iba yung case ng National Museum kasi talagang museum lang siya. No? So, maganda nga sigurong we can ask for someone from their security department.
Okay. So yeah, I took note of that, and let's see if we can talk to people who can also discuss about the security of museums.
Kasi sa ICOM merong committee on museum security. Merong there's a committee that focuses on that. So maybe we can look at references then yung mga publications or conference proceedings, no, that they issue or they release.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Eric, for that last comment. Okay, so we're done for today's session.
Okay, thank you.
Boots for our HAI participants.
Maraming salamat din, and thank you for sharing your office with me, your bat cave.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Boots, and thank you for all our participants, both are watching in YouTube now, at our Facebook page, and of course in our Zoom platform. No? So thank you so much. And next week, we will have a session on how to make videos now for your museum. So we have two part series here. One is by Assistant Professor James Beltran, and part 2 is by Jed Wilver David. No? So these are our faculty at UP Baguio who helped us in the videos, no, in our museum. So they will give practical tips, no, on how you can enhance your exhibition through videos. Okay, so maraming salamat po. Please don't forget to answer the feedback form sent to the chat box. And also, we would like to thank Commission on Higher Education and UP Baguio and Museo Kordilyera for this year 2 of the museum management training. So have a good weekend, and we will resume on April 21 and 22. Okay. For this session on how to make videos for your museum exhibition. Maraming salamat, and thank you, Boots, and have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.